The Professional and Personal Life of Uta Hagen and Herbert Berghoff.
I'm Letitia Ferrer, the daughter of Uta Hagen and stepdaughter of Herbert Berghoff.
I'm Teresa Tuscher, the granddaughter of Uta Hagen and Herbert Berghoff.
We created this podcast to share ours and other stories of life with Uta and Herbert.
We hope you'll join us in listening to these adventures.
On today's episode, we welcome Tim Sweeny. He goes behind the scenes with us of what it was like working at the studio, in the office as well as in the theater, along with sharing a few personal moments with Uta and Herbert. This is his story.
HB was such a stepping stone to my start in New York.
Okay.
And I came to New York from Los Angeles specifically to go to HB.
Oh, okay.
I had heard about it. Well, there was I think Charles Nelson Riley had a acting studio out in Los Angeles, which was based on a lot of your grandmother's.
With Burt Reynolds.
With Burt Reynolds, yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Correct.
I talked with somebody, Mark. He's in Florida, and he originally studied with Charles at the Burt Reynolds Institute, where they did my grandmother's technique.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let's get into it.
So I had just finished high school, and I was involved in theater productions out there, and I had gotten an early start in it because the neighborhood that I grew up in was a lot of people that lived in the neighborhood were in the business. The writers of the Al Burnett show, Ken and Mitzi Welch, musical directors.
Okay.
And they used to do one-act plays for this, what we would have a block party. And at the end of the block party, there would be basically a children's play, but it would be produced by them and other people.
Okay.
So I got an early start, and that's what I wanted to do, I thought, at the time. And I had heard nothing but good things about HB.
Okay.
I visited New York twice during my last 2 years in high school with my drama class.
Okay.
Well, I fell in love with New York. I fell in love with being here, and that's where I wanted to go. And after convincing my mother that it was time to leave, which didn't take an awful lot of convincing because she was very supportive in my decision.
Okay.
But she wanted to make sure that I had a place to live, and then of course have a place to work, because I couldn't do either without coming to New York.
Okay.
I was able to find a place to live fairly easily. I had
what time frame was this about?
Well, this was fall of 1980.
Okay. The good times of New York.
The good times of New York. Take that as you will.
It's true.
So it was August of 80 that I came. I packed up and I moved into a studio apartment on the Upper West Side, which was a sublet.
Okay.
And it just so happened it was the apartment of Richard Valentine, who was going to be touring in Camelot with Richard Burton, that last tour that they did.
Okay.
Was performing at Lincoln Center. Then they were going to travel the United States.
Okay.
And so I had a place to live, and it was very nice. And I started my courses at HB. Okay.
Who did you first study with when you went?
It was Ed Morehouse.
I remember him. Legendary.
Oh yes. Ed Morehouse and Jeffrey Essman, theater games, and Carol Rosenfeld.
Yep, she's still there.
She's still there. Yes. Yeah, I know. She's very instrumental with the core Hagen technique. Right?
Yes. She teaches it. I think it's called like the Core Foundation or Uta Hagen Masterclass or something.
Right.
So
she was very supportive, as was Ed. Ed was a stickler and one of the hardest probably teachers I've ever been through. But he gave me a lot of good advice, hard advice, but
Mhm.
very good advice. He was very good. He was very good.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed working with him. My progression from basic technique through advanced scene study really was well thought out and planned and
Okay.
executed, I must say.
Okay.
Of course, speech, Ruth Berkowitz and William Maloney and Lloyd Williamson through movement. And,
Okay.
And
I'm not familiar with him. I remember June Eve Story.
June Eve Story, I
Yep.
knew her very well. Well, I knew everybody. Yeah.
Well, that was what happened. Like once you became part of the school, you just kind of, you would move through, and it was a community and everybody knew everybody.
Sure was.
Okay.
There was a receptionist that was just leaving. His name was Gary Smith, I believe was his name.
Okay.
He was leaving, and Eric asked me if he should talk to Murriel about me if I wanted to replace Jerry.
Okay. Murriel Burns. As legendary as Edward Morehouse.
Yeah.
They were like the founders.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Eric introduced me to Murriel, and Murriel took a liking to me.
Okay.
She says, I don't know how many hours I can promise you, but she says we can certainly try you out. I can introduce you to Uta and Herbert and see what they say. And, if, all goes well, then, we can, work you in.
Okay.
If you'd want to. And I said, sure. And she did just that. And everything, worked out just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a receptionist at HB from 1981 till 1984.
So how did you, so you went from working as a receptionist and then how in the office, and then how did it transfer to you studying? You studied with my grandmother.
No, I actually never did.
Okay.
We, she and I, we never did. I got more involved with the theater.
With the foundation.
Doing that, doing tech work while studying. I got Bob Fleri.
Yeah.
We spent countless nights building sets.
Great guy.
For the Apollo of Bellac, for the Silver Fox that your grandmother and Kelly Wolf did. Yep.
And she did it. And with Lila Robbins.
Yep.
Kelly, both of them, I interviewed for the podcast.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So, and Kelly's going to be coming to New York soon.
Oh, wonderful.
So, but tell us about, so Bob Fleri, building sets with him. He unfortunately passed not so long ago. But he was wonderful. Share some of that. Like we talked a little bit about it, the endless nights of you building sets.
Right.
What was that like?
It was, well, I was young. I was 20. Yeah, I was 20.
Anything's possible at that age.
Anything's possible. I'd work a 8-hour shift in the office, and then I would go next door, and Bob would get me with the saws and the hammers and measuring 2x4s and painting flats. And
do you have a favorite project that you worked on during that time?
It probably was the Apollo of Bellac.
Okay.
And both between the Apollo of Bellac and Silver Fox. And I'll tell you the reasons why both. My family back in Los Angeles, my mother was a concert pianist.
Okay.
My aunt was an opera singer and teacher. My grandmother was a artist, painter.
Okay.
As well as my great grandmother. So I had this acting bug in me. So that's why I already said had come to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Bernstein,
of course, who recently passed.
Yeah. His father, Leonard Bernstein, used to come into the rehearsals practically daily.
Wow.
And I introduced myself to him. I was working also part-time at Lincoln Center handing out souvenir programs and libretto
Right.
candy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were playing Candide at the time. It was a revival of
Okay.
Candide. And so I
Okay.
mentioned that to him, and he says, oh yeah, of course, doing that. And then I mentioned to him how much I enjoyed working with Alex. And he said, Alex was one of my favorite compositions. During that summer, my mom had come to New York, and we went to see a Broadway show. I think it was La Cage aux Folles.
Okay.
And Leonard Bernstein was in the audience as well. And she has a PhD in music theory out in Los Angeles, UCLA, and all this. I said, do you want to meet him?
Very cool.
And so she goes, sure. And so we worked our way through the lobby, and he was standing talking to somebody, and I brushed his elbow, and he turned around and he goes, Tim, what are you doing here? I said, well, we're seeing,
very cool.
And so I had the opportunity to introduce my mom to him.
Okay.
Which thrilled her beyond belief. And it was a story I really enjoyed telling, because I knew how much music meant to her, and how, important he was in the music industry.
Yeah.
And it was a very touching period.
Yeah. It's funny because the whole world, like, I mean, I always say this all the time, the way I grew up, I mean, I might have met him when I was little and I didn't know it. But Alex, his son, had always been one of my favorite people at the studio. And for every Christmas, we would go to Carnegie Hall, and we would see Abrasha Schneider or Alexander Schneider conduct. And then my grandmother was good friends with him, and he would have after dinner parties. So we would go to those. And at that time, it was Abrasha would audition all these people from all over the country or all over the world to perform at this Christmas event at Carnegie Hall. And I remember seeing Yo-Yo Ma before he was Yo-Yo Ma. And Abrasha was friends with Isaac Stern. So then I met Isaac Stern, and it was just like normal. But but to meet Leonard Bernstein, like, oh my God, what an opportunity. And he was nice.
He was extremely nice, extremely gracious, didn't have any thing that came along with him that, you would assume, he was very down to earth person. Yeah. Most people at HB were that way.
You almost had to, like, that was part of a prerequisite. You couldn't come in with like this arrogance.
No.
Because it would be shut down really quickly. Because it was, and again, you and I have spoken a little bit about this, but like, it was about the work. And the work ethic, which you have shared with me, that was a place where it started for you and still continues. And I think that that's such a strong factor of my grandparents and what they instilled in so many people. And it didn't matter if it was, building something, building a set, whatever your art was, that was part of the core of the school.
The willingness to allow yourself to be exposed to all these different work ethics, and without any kind of people have gone away from that. People just don't want to work anymore, and it wanted to eat.
It's true.
You have to work so hard to really succeed.
Yeah.
And your grandmother and Herbert both instilled that in me at a very young age.
Yeah.
And my parents too. My mom in particular gave me that kind of naturally, because we had a European background also.
Okay.
So it's just that.
Yeah. But it's so interesting, because people that I've spoken to, you and Kelly and Victor, everybody, people who came to the studio at that time when they were teaching, they were very young. So the hunger was really there. and the studio offered a place to be fed, you know, intellectually, emotionally, and, you know, as we have shared also, spring cleanup.
Yep.
And Herbert cutting the cold cuts.
Oh yes. You know, I'll never forget that. Was the dog's name Julie?
There was Susie Carabino. Susanna.
Susanna, yes.
The little gray poodle.
The little gray poodle.
Yeah.
She was running around there in 122, and I think I had to take her out for a walk a couple times. I remember.
Yeah.
But Herbert cutting the cold cuts and listening to the radio and singing along with whatever was on it was so special.
Yeah.
And then having lunch in the little garden in the back.
In the garden back, yeah.
And then we'd all go upstairs. I was always working in the office because that basically was my station, along with your mom.
Okay.
Buchanan and Cheryl. I don't remember her last name, but she was.
Oh, I remember her. Brown curly hair.
Brown curly hair.
Yes.
Bruce McDonald. He was in charge of basically the foreign student exchange that was going on at the time. That he was subordinator for that. Kim Messner, I think was her name. She had brown curly hair.
By that time, I was a teenager and had little interest in the school.
But you used to.
I was off doing.
You were doing dance there.
I studied dance every Sunday. I think I probably took I took June Eve Stories class. I might have taken both classes on Sundays. And then there was another guy who I studied with, and he helped me he choreographed a piece for me to audition for LaGuardia High School.
You grew up fast in New York. There's, as I did.
It's true.
I was a little older than you, but I was still very young. You know, I was 17. I was just turned 18 when I came to New York, and it was.
And that's the thing. Like, everybody who was in that age bracket who came to New York, who studied at the studio, you know, you were just hungry. And like everybody I've spoken to, they have all said the same thing. You know, the work ethic was instilled automatically. When I spoke to Victor Slazak, he said, you know, he went to Montauk. And my grandmother would get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning with her legal notepad. He said, I got up today at like 5, and that's because of her. And it's nice to, you know, see what they brought, just to say, hey, this is what is expected. This is what you should expect of yourself. And at that age, you were like, feed me.
Yes.
It's nice to see that has trickled over the years, because they've been gone a long time.
Yes. She was in particular very supportive of me from the get-go. We really got along, I believe. And so did Herbert, but she and I were the closest of the two. I think she had heard a lot through Murriel, because Murriel adored me.
Yeah.
And vice versa. We, as an extension of working with Bob in the Playwrights Foundation, the 3rd floor classroom that separated the 3rd floor from the shack that was out and back, that was all a rooftop when I first started. We became
in 122.
In 120.
Okay.
Where the office is, there was a passageway between
the
shack in the back.
Yes.
And the 3rd floor wasn't an office at the time; it was a classroom. But then,
right. I remember that. And then they built that room.
Yes.
When Herbert died, the architect came and they showed the model, and I remember the conversation about that, because it was in the theater, and the architect came and they had the model, and they were talking about what they were going to do, and then they built that extra room on the 3rd floor that's just open glass, it's beautiful. But
myself and Matthew Conlon and Fabian and Preska, who was there at the time, and countless others. Sally Burdenshaw was there. I mean, we all were there hoisting bricks. Heidi, very young Heidi and Kyle were there.
Oh my gosh.
Doing the best they could anyway for 12, 13 years old.
Yeah.
But we were all hoisting bricks.
Okay.
from morning to night when I wasn't working or cutting wood or whatever
Yeah.
the case was. We all single-handedly built that classroom.
Even my grandmother said this a while ago. I mean, said it to somebody. She said, it's your school. 120 is your building, right? And that was for every single student that entered that door. It's your building. So treat it as such. But Kyle and Heidi, oh my gosh, I remember them.
They were terrific, and they were the most mature 12, 13-year-old kids I've ever met in my life.
And that's the foundation of the school.
I tell you, it certainly was. And I think both your grandmother and Herbert saw that in me, and saw it in everybody else. It wasn't just me. I mean, we were just the people, the go-to people. But, you know, it just was the team that got things done.
Yeah.
And willingly so. You know, it was a lot of hours. It was a lot of hard work. I'm not going to lie. But we wanted to do it. You never had to ask twice. Oh, you know, maybe if I can. It was yes. You know, you did it.
That's the gift that it offered, because if you were there, it made you want to do it. Yeah.
What you were getting back, you were giving. You know, it was very reciprocal. Right. And it was something that it gave me a whole lifetime of experience, and I'm really proud of that experience, because it did build me as a person. I was running sound for a while on some of the shows as well too. They kind of worked me into that in the Playwrights Foundation, and I did the Apollo of Bellac with did that, and I did something with Dorothy Dorff and William.
Oh gosh, I remember icons again.
And then I was set to do Silver Fox. I think they had some type of a sound effect that was coming through the baseboards. It's supposed to be like steam heat coming through occasionally throughout the show. And I was going to do it for the entire run of the show, but something happened. I had to go away for a good portion of the rehearsal. And so they gave it somebody else to do. What I was doing had ended, and we were all there was a bar in the village. I think it was called No Name.
Bob Fleri used to go there all the time.
That's why we all used to go there. We used to go there after building sets all day, and so we'd talk about everything, you know. So I mean, it was really a core group that would get, you know, do this. This insanity, but creative insanity. You know, it was fun. It was fun insanity. It wasn't, you know, anything else. But and your grandmother was there, and Bob, and I believe your mom was there too. Sally probably was there. Maybe Matthew. There was several of us that had gone. And they had brought up the fact that they needed somebody to run sound for Silver Fox, because that person bowed out, and I hadn't done it yet, but I'd done a couple other productions for them. And Bob says, well, Tim's free now, so he can do it. And your grandmother looked at me and she goes, "You're going to do it?" And I and I said, of course I'll do it. I said, I want to have some rehearsal. She goes, "Oh, you'll be rehearsed." She goes, "I don't want to hear any strange sounds coming through the radio."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I said, "Well, I'll try." And she goes, "Oh, you'll do more than try." And you better be good.
I can hear the voice.
And I said, "I will be fine. I promise you, I will be fine." She goes, "All right now. So we'll you know, you're going to do this." And I said, "Okay, I'm committed to do it."
Okay.
Never in my life have I seen anybody work so hard behind the scenes as your grandmother, as she did on stage. People, when they come off stage, they usually, I don't know, they don't break character, but they, you know, it's completely different.
Right.
Sitting there running the sound for that show, I got to see that. I got to see her backstage life as a character or as the person that she was in the play. You could see the rest of the house in her eyes.
Okay.
You could see her walking down a hallway. You could see, you knew the side of the show that you didn't see as an audience member. I will never forget in my life.
Okay.
It was a whole nother show behind this.
Yeah.
A silent show, but you knew exactly what the rest of the house was going, what the rest of the house looked like in her head, just by watching
Wow.
her work.
Wow.
It was phenomenal, and I am so honored and humbled. I don't even know the word to say that I was able to witness that.
Yeah.
Not many people do. After the show was over, I said, "So how was it?" You know, and she went, "You're fine. You're great." So,
She, and I've said this before, she expected and demanded, and in her professional world as well as in her personal world, because if she felt she's giving, she's delivering, and so should you.
Yeah.
And in the acting world, that is a tremendous opportunity to watch. And as you've said, like, the work ethic nowadays, it's restructured. Stage is way harder than film.
Yes.
And
that's what I desired when I first came to New York. I could have stayed in Los Angeles and possibly worked.
Right.
But I wanted that. I had theater training sort of in Los Angeles, and that was a path that I wanted to pursue at the time. I felt New York was the best place for me. New York had always called me to come, even at a very young age. I used to see it on TV, and I want to go to New York. Oh, it looks better. I was told it looks much better, on TV than it is in real life. And maybe in some ways it does, but there is nothing that New York has a very unique vibe. Always has, always probably will. It's very attractive in many, many ways, and it has a lot to offer if you know how to navigate it.
You're treating in a way, your fourth wall, I guess you could say, and without exposing it.
And that was part of the training too. It's that acknowledgement of the fourth wall without acknowledging the fourth wall. And it's I mean, everything that you learn, you're taught, becomes an instinct through the way your grandmother taught and set up her her training, and it's been completely beneficial to me my whole life, and I give her full credit.
Well, I always like to ask people this. So you talk about that. What's the biggest thing that you can say right now that you would say that's because of her, or that's because of Herbert, or that's because of the studio?
Oh, that my tenacity to get the job done. That drive. Don't let anything stand in your way to get to that objective that you want. And it's back to actions. What are my actions that get to that objective? The straightest, the quickest point, what is it? The quickest way between 2 points is a straight line. So where you're going, where you're starting from, figure out the best way to get there, and the quickest, but the most direct way. And I think that's basically what has stayed with me. They were very good to me. It was my first job. They were my first employers, basically, in my life. So they left they left a big imprint on my life. It's funny, when Murriel retired, I think it was in 83 or 84. I don't remember. It was right after the classroom was finished, or they were still working on it. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, Murriel had a retirement party, and shortly, because we were working so hard to get those bricks up and like that. I had a dream like the night before or two, somewhere during the week, that I was holding a skill saw and I was cutting holes in the floor of the new classroom for whatever reason. And Murriel came up to me because we were having some floods in the basement at the same time, down in all the way in the bottom. And I think it was mostly because that HB is on kind of that whole village is on a stream, on a stream. And Murriel said to me in the dream, "This is why we're having the floods in the basement, was because the result of me cutting these holes in the floor of this classroom." So during the retirement party, everybody was there because Murriel had been at the studio for so long, and your mom, and anyway, there was Martha Schlamme, who was I believe studied there, and also I had a few musical comedy classes as well. Okay. Sang something from Jacques Murriel, about the carousel going around and around and around and around. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And there was a slight lull, and I got up and I told the dream that I had about cutting the holes in the floor of the classroom and the water coming down, and then Murriel coming in. "This is why we're having the floods in the basement." Your grandmother and Herbert fell on the floor laughing. They were hysterical.
I can see that.
And Murriel was standing next to me, and she was looking at me, and she says, "Yes, that's something, but I would."
Oh, that's.
And then I regrouped it, and I said, "I will miss you, and I know everybody in this room will miss you, and thank you for all the years of service that even before I had come in, that you kept in the studio and everything like that." And she was very grateful. Later on that evening, your grandmother came up to me and she goes, "That was so sweet of you." And she says, "You were so funny." She said, "Why haven't you ever taken my class?" She goes, you should take my class. I really, she goes, you really had the room in your hand." And she said, "You were so good." She said, "You were so good." I started shaking, Teresa. I was like, the inside of me was shaking, and I wasn't nervous. I was excited, and I was honored.
Okay.
And circling back to Dorothy Dorff, who I mentioned earlier, and she came up to me. She could see that I was like, she goes, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "I don't know, just overcome with emotion." And she goes, "You were really good." So I took that as a really very high compliment. I felt what I learned from your grandmother, not just through her class, but as a person, helped me the rest of my life, as far as how I was able to navigate my way through.
So I was just going to ask you, I mean, I always kind of ask this as a final question, but it feels like you've answered it. What's something that that you miss from the school or from my grandparents?
I miss the camaraderie. I miss that there was that core people, including your grandparents, that no matter as hard as you worked, that you always knew you had the support of them, and you always knew you had the support of the people that were around you. It was a very rare experience where just everybody that was doing what they did best shine, and they were there to help you every single step of the way, which is 84. I didn't have a roommate at the time to help me share rent, and they had a friend that lived in Cologne, Germany. His name was Albin Anzeroth.
Okay.
And he was coming to New York every summer, and your grandmother and Herbert pulled me into the first floor of the Playwrights Foundation. She says, "We have Albin coming in. He needs a place to stay, and he'll be in New York for 3 months."
Okay.
So I know you're in the between roommates and everything like that. would you want to house him? You know, could he stay with you? Do you have room?
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to come and go. You know, I had a sofa bed in the living room and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And he said, "You're paying rent. You know, he's not just going to come and not, you know."
Right.
He's a teacher at the University of Cologne. He's more than good.
Responsible. Yeah.
Responsible and everything like that. They knew him for years. They promised me absolutely everything would be fine if I agreed to, you know, let him stay with me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the best we could do. And of course I agreed. And he was wonderful. He was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got along very well. And and they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
If they didn't want to, you know. And so I felt, you know, they certainly helped me that summer, and it was needed to keep me in New York at the time. No, they were lovely.
Very generous. And
if you believed in them and you believed in their work and your work ethic, they just were wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful with me.
They not only appreciated it, they respected you when the feeling was mutual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
to this day, I found on eBay, I have this picture of your grandmother and Herbert, and Edna Preston is the other actress's name.
Oh my goodness.
And it was at City Center in 1952.
How wonderful.
I have it on my wall in my apartment here. And you know, just as a memory and as an honor to them, because they both meant so much to me and were such an instrumental part of my my early years in New York. Nothing but you know, fond memories and beyond fond memories, just grateful for their support.
Mm-hmm. and their time.
In their time.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't targeted already?
Yes. Speaking of City Center, during the time that I was receptionist there, your grandmother did a radio show with Alan Combs. He was a talk radio host back in the 80s, and interviewed your grandmother because she was going to be presenting some type of an award or receiving an award. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something to do, I believe, with the Actors Fund. And it was something going on at City Center that weekend. So people were calling in. Of course, he had this fairly lengthy interview with her before the callers could call in. It was like taking her class. I mean, it just, what she had to say, I had recorded it on tape. I listened to it over and over and over again, and I lent it to people, and they would listen to it. They would make copies. At the time, you could make copies of that tapes and everything like that. I called into the show.
And you got through? I
got through. And Alan said, "Oh, we have the receptionist from your school on the line." This is who? And I said, "It's Tim." And she goes, "Tim." She goes, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "Thank you so much for calling in." And then Alan Combs said something like, "So, you know, what brings you on the line?" You know? And so I mentioned whatever she was going to be doing at City Center, and then got her to discuss what she was doing at City Center. And unfortunately, I don't remember what she was doing with the whole, I know the basis, I just don't know the whole details of what it was. And and then as we were parting, Alan Combs said, "Well, if he's late tomorrow at the office tomorrow, don't dock him because he," something like that. I don't know.
That's funny.
They had a good laugh. The next day, when I went to work, I was talking to your mom, you know, because she and I worked right across the desk from each other. And she was at that first desk. And I said, "You know what? I called into the show last night." And she was aware that I did. She says, "That was so sweet of you." And she says, and I said, "You know what? I recorded it." She goes, "You recorded it?" She said, "I'll talk to Mom." She says, "She probably wants to have that, you know."
Did you give her a copy?
I sure did, you know.
Then if it was still around when she passed, then we gave it to Lincoln Center Library
Oh,
because that's where all of her professional work went.
I sure did, because when I went home immediately, I had a double deck cassette thing I could record from the one to the next, you know, and I brought it in the next day, and I went down to her classroom, and I said, she goes, wow, that was fast. And I said, well, you know, Letty said that you would like to have it, and she says, well, you know, how much you want? And I said, I don't want to charge you. And she goes, well, at least a cassette costs something. How much do you want? You know, what can I pay you for the cassette?
Yeah.
$10, $5?
Right.
Really? I said, it's a gift. And she goes, no. She pulled out and she gave me a $10 bill, and she goes, thank you. And she says, thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for calling in. That really livened up the show. And she said, you know what? And they didn't mention it, and you were the only one that mentioned it. And she said, and I was so happy to talk about it, because I felt it was important for what we were doing there.
Yeah.
So she said, and you were the one that, you know, that got the conversation stirred to that. And she says, she says, thank you very much for calling in. And she says, and thank you so much for this. Your grandmother passing, the strangest thing happened that day. I had just come back from Baltimore, visiting a friend down there, and went down with another friend. When I came out of Penn Station, there was a lady with a like a dark blue pea coat on, gray hair, very much like your grandmother, same size, same everything. And I thought, is that Uta? You know.
She would never be a Penn Station.
I started to follow her, but I mean, the person that it was, reminded me of her. Actually, made me think it was her at first, until I could see full on it wasn't her, and I stopped my stalker. Teresa, when I got home and I turned on the news, actress Uta Hagen passed away today.
I just got goosebumps.
It wasn't scary. It was comforting. It was, I ran the full emotion, and I wanted your mom to know how much she meant, and how much I cared, you know, and was sorry, obviously, that, you know, she had passed.
And I remember hearing that they shut the lights on Broadway. I remember people would say she was a legend even before she was gone. And she's like, I'm not dead. You know, but it's always nice to hear the stories, the easy ones, the hard ones, the challenging ones, the loving ones, the tough ones, because they were all there. Right. And, but the fact that, like, on the day that again, I got goosebumps when you were telling the story, that the day that she died and you saw this woman.
I literally followed her down the block.
Yeah.
Not that I thought it was her. It's just that she reminded me of her.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure it wasn't her, you know, because I would have obviously said, you know, hi. It had been several years, well, been about 10 years since I probably had last seen her, you know, in person.
And it's also like, sometimes we do things just because we want to hold, even if it's not that person, but in our mind, it's that person. And we want to hold on to that memory. But just the fact that she decided that she left on that day, and the day you saw her, that woman.
It was, the timing was, talk about perfect timing, impeccable timing.
Yeah.
It was devastating, actually, timing. But
it was a hard one.
I took it as
she was saying goodbye.
She was saying goodbye.
She was saying goodbye. And it was in a way that was like just between the two of you.
Yeah.
And that, like, I will cry. Because when you had those moments, they were just a gift.
Yeah, they were, and there was always something special. There was always something very special with us, because she well, I was a hard worker. I mean, pat myself on the back, but I was a hard worker. And you
had to be.
And I know I had to be, you know, and at a very young age. And I learned how to, and it wasn't something that was taught. It was just something that was in me. And I think that's what makes you succeed in life. You have to have whatever it is that you want in inside you, and you have to have that person that brings it out. And she and Herbert were that.
Yeah.
As far as my professional life started.
And still in your personal life. I mean, you're still driven.
I'm still driven.
You still work hard.
You know, I'm going on 63, and you know, I feel good, and you know, it's I've been here since 17, you know, so it's a lot that's happened in between.
Tim, thank you for giving us so much of your time. There's a plethora of stories that you've shared with us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. And what really got me thinking about it was your interview with Victor Slazak, and him bringing up the spring cleanup and everything like that. You know, and I thought, got a lot of memories from that time, and how instrumental your grandmother and Herbert were, and you know, my enjoyment working with Letty and your mom, and you know, all the people that were there, and knowing you at a young age, and I was young too, and you know, and still holding on.
We both are. We both
are. Exactly.
We both are.
Amen to that, and high five. Virtual high five.
If you like this podcast, please feel free to share this with your friends.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more stories on the professional and personal life of Uta Hagen and Herbert.